Everyone just getting started here. Let me pull up the rep view screenshots. Perfect. Everyone, so yeah, as normal, like every other week, talking about tech sales, how to get in. So it's kind of usually like an open discussion. But this session, like most of the other sessions, are sponsored by RepView. So they're kind of like Glassdoor, but for tech sales, specifically for tech sales. Um, these are some of like the top paying enterprise companies that you can see there. Um, but you know, these are numbers that you wouldn't really see until at least 5 years into your career, and that's like if you're doing very well and getting promotions. In other cases, it might be closer to like 10 years down the road or something like that. But you would start off as a sales development rep. You're going to do that for about 12 to 24 months, kind of depending on how quickly you ramp. And then you kind of move up the ladder from there. So inside sales rep, and then an account executive, and you're covering like SMB, mid-market, enterprise. This is kind of the enterprise numbers here. Hey man, currently transitioning out of the military and looking for an internship opportunity to get started. Yeah, plenty of opportunities. A lot of the internships are geared towards people in college, but I'm not sure how many there are that are out of college. But I'm actually going to be starting something potentially soon with another company that I'm doing some sales consulting work with. So I might have some internship opportunities I'm going to share. Best SDR resume resource having trouble getting your foot in the door. Um, in my Discord, I posted in the resource section kind of like some guidelines and outlines for how to build like a sales focused resume. So check that out. I've also used this resume service called Resume Assassin. I've used her twice, both to optimize my resume and my LinkedIn profile. I'm gonna add her to my bio and in the resource section on the Discord fairly shortly. Do you have average comp for sales managers? Yeah, so for sales managers, the average comp is actually about the same. You're pretty much going to have the same OTE as a sales manager. The difference is your quota is a combination of everyone that you're managing. So it's going to be a bit harder to exceed your quota, but it makes it a little bit more stable. What about IT resellers? Yeah, resellers are a big part. They're a big part of, especially with the big cloud companies. They work very closely with resellers. Trying to switch from investment sales, currently making 150 to 175K, would you have to take a step back? Most likely, you're going to have to take a step back slightly, just for like a year as a sales development rep. You might be able to get like 100K, but really, it's short term. You potentially might be able to find like a closing role, but the challenge is in tech sales, a lot of like the closing roles, they require you to have closing experience on the software sales side. Thoughts on Cisco Americai? Solid company. How do you break into internships with teller experience? Get referrals. Referrals will help a ton. So use LinkedIn. I have a post about that. Ooh, lots of questions. I'm going to cover all these. MuleSoft solid. Can a communication degree get into tech sales? Yep, you definitely can. What is data scientist comp? So at like the big tech companies, your comp is mostly based on your level. In some places, data scientists like a Google might be on the engineering ladder versus the non-engineering ladder, but it's actually fairly similar. It's just based on level. Thoughts on Salesforce as an employer? Great sales organization. Thoughts on Vendition? Vendition has a good boot camp. I think it's called salesbootcamp.com. Um, do you know anything about non-SaaS tech sales? Yeah, I'm in cloud right now, which is technically not SaaS. It's consumption based, and I've done cloud sales at both Amazon and Google. It's definitely a bit different than SaaS, where you're selling contracts in SaaS. Best thing an SDR should know when they start. Yeah, best thing that you should know is have a clear goal of when you want to get promoted. So let's say if you really want to get promoted within 12 months, make it very clear with your manager that that's what you want to do. Not every SDR wants to go into a closing role. So make it clear, really understand how your performance is being measured, and hold your manager accountable to your timelines. If you don't get promoted within a year, have like monthly check-ins with them. Thoughts on tech startups? Tech startups are tricky. I've done 2 startups. One was pretty bad. The other one was okay. I kind of learned a lot of things. You really need to look at like the quality of the product, the leadership team. Try not to join a startup like that's really early, and that also like the leadership team has never done a startup before. Can be potentially a bad move. But if they're like, Series B, Series C, or even Series D, and they're funded by like tier 1 VC firms, it can be a great rocket ship for you. Have I heard of C-Event? I have not. What search did you look at again? Tech sales at Fang. The AWS Cloud Practitioner certification is a great high-level, business-level certification. Watch I'm wearing. This is a Citizen. I forgot which one it is, but it's the AT something. But it's kind of neat. It has all the different time zones in there. Are those enterprise rep stats behind me? Yes, they are enterprise. These are enterprise figures right here. So the top paying. So this is sorted by highest OTE for like these enterprise roles based on the company. So you've got base salary, OTE. This is like the highest reported earnings that someone has had within a single year. So at the enterprise level, a 50-50 split is pretty common. So that's kind of what you see here, base and then OTE. This is how much you would earn if you had 100% of your goal. What level am I at Amazon? I'm a level 6. Thoughts on MongoDB? MongoDB is solid. They tried to hire me a few years ago. Do startups hire interns? They do, but usually it's just the bigger ones that do. What companies are best to intern at? I would recommend interning at medium to larger companies that have like a very solid internship program. You want something that's a little bit more formal in terms of like training, because that's what you want to get out of an internship. And also, you want to target companies for internships that you'd want to work full-time at, because that's probably one of the easiest or best ways to get in, is to do very well at the internship, and then you'll get a return offer for full-time. If you're already in a full cycle sales job, how likely is it for you to transition directly into SaaS AE? You're going to have your best chance if you're able to somehow leverage the experience that you have right now in full cycle sales. So depending on like the vertical, the types of customers that you're selling into, UX design versus tech sales, 2 very different career paths for sure. How do you get referrals to work in Google, Amazon? So if you're interested in applying at Amazon, I can give you a referral there. Send me a DM on Instagram. There used to be able to send DMs on TikTok, but they changed the privacy settings where you can only DM people who follow you back, which is kind of annoying. I had a checkbox set that I was able to accept DMs from everyone, but they removed that. So send me a message on Instagram. ServiceNow is great. They've got a great platform. Pretty bullish on their leadership team. Thoughts on customer success roles? Customer success can be fun. Obviously, it's not a closing role, but you're still a part of the sales team. So it kind of depends on what you enjoy. I prefer more of the pre-sale side than post-sale side, just because I love like the pitching and the discovery piece. Thoughts on Dell? Dell is having a pretty good turnaround. Please elaborate on how a communication degree can get into tech sales. Yes, so you're going to get into tech sales pretty much like anyone else. You're either going to apply directly for positions, build like a sales-focused resume. So even if you haven't done prior sales roles, you can still talk about your prior experiences from like an internal selling perspective. You can also still look at like a tech sales boot camp, like pre-hired or pre-sales academy. Those are listed in my bio. Those are 2 that I recommend. There's plenty of others that out there that you can check out. Opinions on Snowflake SDR. Snowflake is a very solid company. I wouldn't hesitate to take an SDR position there. Okta is great. Databricks, they have a hotly anticipated IPO, so could be a good time to join them. Thoughts on Zoom as an SDR? Zoom's been killing it, so that'd be a great place to go. Ideally, what you want to do is like, if you're looking at SDR positions, you want to kind of like target like the types of companies that you'd want to be a seller at, because they like to do a lot of internal promotion. So a normal path is to go from an SDR to a closing role. So it's definitely easier to do that, internally. Best thing an SDR should know when they start out: build your internal network as quickly as you can. Be very coachable. Don't take criticism too personally. You're going to be learning a ton. What was my first company? First one was National Instruments in the test and measurement space, and then I made the jump to software. Best way to get interviews, referrals for sure. I have a video on my TikTok where it's about like how you can leverage LinkedIn to get referrals, and you're kind of basically looking for people that either went to like the same school, same hometown, or something similar or similar interests, and then you're gonna basically reach out on LinkedIn there, have an informal conversation, and then ask for the referral. Usually, people are pretty happy to do that. Starts to break into FANG. So I talked about that one. So that'd be like the AWS Cloud Practitioner certification. I would recommend that one. Would you recommend getting a start through Vendition? Yeah, definitely. You can try that out. Would you ever do mock calls, mock sales meetings? I did, and like when I was like initially starting out, that's like a pretty common thing that you would do. I don't do it right now. I might set it up through my Discord though. You know, an SDR with 260K OTE, 50 years of experience. That's pretty high OTE for SDR. But I wouldn't be surprised. Usually SDRs are more junior, but I could see like higher level SDR roles, especially at like the bigger companies where your pay is mostly based on your level, not necessarily the job title. Thoughts on Tesla's sales engineering roles? I'm actually not too familiar on what the sales engineering roles at Tesla would actually entail, but interesting company for sure. Are those enterprise AE stats? Yes. Thoughts on AE versus partner channel sales? Two very different motions, both very important. How do you get into cloud sales from SaaS? Get referrals, and then the cloud certifications can help a ton. Thanks everyone for joining. We got some great participation here. Is the sales bootcamp completely free? If not, can you pay for the class up front? Yeah, so the pre-hired one specifically, it's not free, but they don't charge you anything until you actually land a job that pays, I think, at least 70,000 a year, which is pretty cool. And then it's like they do an income share agreement, so you pay back a portion of your pay up to a certain cap. But if you want to hear more about it, if you sign up through the link in my bio, they'll do like a full like 1 hour informational meeting. It's like, you know, you're not signing up for anything at that point. Are these jobs mostly remote? Yes. Best way to get interviews. Yeah, LinkedIn. Build up your LinkedIn profile. That's where recruiters are looking for. Make sure you build up your LinkedIn profile and then check the box that says like open for work, and then put in like the types of positions that you're looking at. Do you need to be good at math? Nope, definitely not. Is this ad tech? No, this is software. I guess ad tech could fall in here too. You know someone at MuleSoft that made 2.3 million. Nice. Yeah, I believe it. I actually had a buddy who joined Snowflake as a low-level sales engineer just like a year before they went public, and they gave him like $100,000 worth of options, or maybe it was like 200,000, and then when they went public, it was worth 4 million. So, is this base salaries for BDRs? No, base salaries for BDRs is typically going to be 40 to 60,000. Lots of question, guys. So I'm gonna kind of skip through some so that way they don't get too delayed. Thoughts on IBM in the cloud space? They're actually investing a ton in the cloud. They're kind of catching up right now, but we'll see. Should you work for Snowflake? I would say so. They're still a solid company. I don't think they fizzled out. You know, they had a really great IPO, so obviously things have slowed down a little bit. Am I in Toronto? No, I'm in Chicago, but spent a good amount of time in Austin. So if I haven't gotten to your question, definitely repost it again, because I think this sometimes the chat lags. First interview for SDR, any tips? Yes, lots of good tips. So make sure you have a good answer for why you're interested in tech sales. Why are you interested in this specific company? Know at a high level the company's story, perhaps like the leadership team, how their product fits within the marketplace, who their main competitors are, and then of course be able to talk to like everything that you have on your resume and your LinkedIn. Average time for BDR to AE, 12 to 18 months. If you're really good, you can do it before 12 months, but they usually like to wait until you get that 1 year mark. I did it in 10 months myself personally. And I did that by constantly being at the top of the leaderboards when they were kind of like stack ranking different SDRs. Startup versus big company for tech sales. I'm of the belief that if you're just starting in tech sales, you should do a bigger company because what you want to do in those early roles is learn those foundational skills. And the bigger companies are going to have like um, fairly robust sales training programs, and you're going to build those foundational skills. I think startups are great once you really kind of know what you need to do and you can hit the ground running when you start. Am I familiar with the education and workforce team at AWS? At a high level, I don't work with them too closely. I'm within like the strategic and globals accounts team, so I manage two very large accounts within the automotive space. What's Google entry level SDR role called? Do they hire non-fresh grads? They've been changing the title quite a bit. I think it used to be like um, demand generation, but they changed these titles quite a bit. What makes more money, SaaS AE or SaaS channel? Probably SaaS AE. Usually the partner sales side, they don't put you on a 50-50 split. You'll have the same base, but they'll give you a put you on like a 70-30 split or something. Thoughts on Seamless.ai? They're pretty solid. Actually, I'm going to be speaking at one of their conferences pretty soon. I'm getting that scheduled right now. Is tech sales similar in Canada? Yes. Does Databricks have a great outlook? Yeah, actually, one of the people that I follow here, we follow each other. He's an engineer at Databricks, and he's only said good things. Thoughts on Adobe? Adobe is solid. They're doing a ton of investment. How difficult is it to transition doing tech to sales? I would say it's easy. Like that type of movement would be easier if you do like a more technical sales role, like sales engineering. What's my sales cycle? Is it inbound or outbound? So with my two accounts, the sales cycles are, since they're pretty large accounts, probably like 6 months, and then it's pretty much all. I wouldn't say it's like inbound or outbound. There's no more prospecting for the most part in terms of like cold calling, but I have like executive level relationships, identify projects, and go from there. Biggest commission I've ever gotten from a single sale. It was about 400,000 from a single sale. You said tech sales is more like a guide. What makes someone a good tech salesperson? Great question. Yeah, so tech sales is, it's B2B versus B2C. So you're selling from business to business versus business to consumer. The alternative would be like insurance sales or car sales or something where shorter sales cycles, a bit more like high pressure sales. Within tech sales, you're selling very complex software solutions that can take companies, weeks or months to fully evaluate because these are software systems that cost a lot of money in the millions of dollars in some cases that can have a very large impact on the company itself because they're usually, when they're deciding on bringing on a new software platform, it's something they're committing to for several years. So pretty large implications. And the products themselves are very complex to integrate. So when I say that you're kind of more of like a guide in tech sales, what you're really doing is you're trying to connect all the different dots. So you have like all the different team members on your side, all the different team members and the stakeholders on the customer side, and you're trying to bring everything together. So it's almost like I've heard a good analogy where it's like you're almost kind of like the quarterback on the team. You're not playing every single role, but you are kind of like calling the shots and doing the overall general strategy. Is it okay to add me on LinkedIn? Yeah, absolutely. Thomas Nivyara. But I also have my LinkedIn in my bio, TechSalesTom.com, and then like click on the little LinkedIn icon, it'll be there. Is there an age limit to break into tech sales? I don't think so. At the last startup that I was at, one of the best sellers actually, he was I think he was like almost like 65 or something, and he did great. I think what the actually you probably have a little bit of an advantage when you're older because you're mostly at the higher levels. You're selling to executives, which are also older as well, so a bit easier to relate. Is that normal? Do other companies make reps do new business as well? Um, oh, so software account manager here, mostly renewals. So yeah, so usually it's a lot of companies they'll split up like renewals and existing business from new sales or greenfield account selling. So that's pretty normal. Occasionally they'll have reps do both, but usually they separate it out. Do you work with companies based in Michigan? So two companies I have, they're based in Europe, but they have like offices in Chicago. Uh, um, Option for high paid enterprise AE at a software company or a large company, or VP of sales at a smaller company with larger equity. It's going to vary greatly based on what that smaller company is. Don't pay attention to the titles too much. They do inflate titles at startups. Can you make this much money doing pharmaceutical sales? I don't think so. Not anymore. It used to be pretty lucrative, but from what I've heard, they've really kind of clamped down on the regulations with pharmaceutical sales. Do you recommend doing an SDR role for an AI startup? I would recommend it if they have a good amount of like sales training and enablement within that startup. Is there a red flag when the company says it won't promote an SDR until 18 to 24 months? I don't think so, because that's, it's pretty typical. You really have to like exceed all your expectations to do it any sooner than 18 months, I would say. Like 12 months is kind of typically the fastest you would see. But it's still possible to do it, even if they say they typically wait till 18 to 24 months. Thoughts on Dun & Bradstreet? So they're Dun & Bradstreet, I think the main product that they provide is kind of like a credit score for companies themselves. So not quite in like the software side, but wouldn't be a bad place to start. How do you get into tech sales with no experience? There's a couple different ways. One way that I've seen quite a few people do is they do like a boot camp, like pre-hired or pre-sales academy. Those are listed in my bio. Other than that, you want to build like a sales focused resume. I have that listed in the resource sections of my Discord. And then you can look at my pinned video on my TikTok, and it tells you specifically what types of roles to search for on LinkedIn, and those are the ones you'd be applying for. I recommend maybe doing that first, seeing what kind of traction you can get within 2 or 3 weeks. And if you don't get any traction, then you could do one of the boot camps. Let's see. What's more stressful, SE or AE? It really depends. At this one of the cybersecurity startups I was at, I was an SE, and I thought that was more stressful than the AE roles that I've done. So it really kind of depends on the company itself. In other places, the SE role is less stressful, and there's more pressure on the AE, but I've seen it both ways. How are the Big Four doing with AWS and compensation? I'm not sure how they compare, but from what I know, it's pretty hard for companies to match like how much the big tech companies are paying. Should you go through Vendition or take the Seamless.ai job? I mean, if you have a job lined up through at Seamless, I would just go ahead and do that. That way, you can at least get some experience under your belt, and then who knows? You can kind of decide like where you're going to go from there. But let's see. Am I an account manager? Yeah, that's my current role. But I do both like in cloud. It's a little different. In cloud, you're basically assigned like specific accounts, and there isn't necessarily like the same like a distinction between new sales and existing business, because you achieve quota as they spend on the platform on a monthly basis. So even if you win like a $5 million workload on the cloud, you have to wait for that workload to fully ramp, and usually customers don't immediately turn it on right away. It could take like a year or longer for them to like fully ramp up that whole workload and transition it. You had an interview and they said you need a degree even though you said you graduated in December out of my resume. Yeah, so some companies will be very picky on that. The first company that I was at was picky with having an engineering degree. But for the most part, startups and like the bigger tech companies like Google and Amazon, they don't have degree requirements anymore. AWS DGR reporting in 4 months in the role, OTE 150K TC. Awesome. Yeah, that's a very solid OTE for like an entry level role. And then Amazon or AWS is a great place to grow your career too. Thoughts on 50 years with 11 years telecom sales experience? That's great experience. You could like target software companies that sell to like the same subset of customers. So they will actually place a lot of value on that 11 years of experience because you already know how to sell into those types of accounts. Are quotas set in IT reasonable? It'll vary. So on RepView, they actually break down like percentage of reps that hit quota. And I've seen some startups are pretty bad with setting quota. If like only like 30% or 40% of the team hits quota. Other places, it's like 80 or 90%. So it really kind of depends. Would having a CS degree be valuable? Yes, absolutely. I think the more technical you can be, it's only gonna make you a better seller for the most part because you could have more conversations with the engineering folks on your own without always having to bring in a technical resource. Tips on the move from ISR to OSR AE. Yes, so tips, make sure you're killing all the metrics that you're being measured against. You need to master your core responsibility before you even think about getting promoted. Make sure you're networking with the OSR or AE manager and make it clear that that's the type of move that you want to make. So when I was like an ISR and an SDR, not everyone wanted to move into like a closing role or a field sales role. So how much technical lingo do you need to know? You learn almost all of it on the job. You're going to be like the first like 6 months or longer. It's like you're kind of like drinking from a fire hose. You're trying to catch up, get up to speed with everything. And I've done that transition a few times. I went from like hardware tester measurement to cybersecurity to cloud to like an AI ML fintech startup back to cloud again. So you're going to be learning a ton on the job. Difference between SDR and BDR, so sales development representative, business development representative. Oftentimes these are the same and they're used interchangeably. But for companies that have both of these roles within the same organization, what I've seen is sometimes the one role would be for like inbound prospecting or inbound qualification, and the other one would be for outbound prospecting. But usually they only have one of these within the company, and you end up doing the same for both. How do you get started in this field? Look at my playlist, get how to get into tech sales. So if you go on my TikTok profile, you'll see it there, and I have like a bunch of videos categorized. But one way that's been popular with people that have like non-traditional backgrounds, or if they want a really guided experience, is you can look at like a boot camp, like pre-hired or pre-sales academy, and both of those are in my bio. What makes a great tech salesman like you great? I think what makes a great tech salesperson is someone who is curious, who likes to ask questions, who's good at building relationships with customers, who's able to multitask. Consistency is really important too. What's the demand generation role like at AWS? Is it cold calling? I'm not too familiar with it, but I do believe there would be some cold calling. But the thing is, in tech, usually you don't really do pure cold calling. You're basically reaching out to contacts that like did something on the company website. Maybe they downloaded like a webinar, or they attended a webinar, or they downloaded an ebook or something like that. So it's not usually truly cold. Uh, bu- 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 Thoughts on this tech recruiting seems scam like. Um, Recruiter at first interview said you're a good fit, but to call back after you graduate next month. Yeah, they might say that because they know that you might be preoccupied with school. Sales engineer here, like to talk. Let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, you should. I'd love to have you contribute within like the tech sales Discord that I have. I'm trying to get more like moderators involved. Been busy with a bunch of other things, so I think I'm gonna probably try to organize some other people to help out and do some additional engagement there. Why is BDR all cold calls? It depends. In some companies, you're doing more cold calling than others. Other ones, you're doing a bunch of like lead follow up, so it really kind of varies. Do you need a college degree to get started in tech sales? No. Thoughts on technical account manager? Great if you want to be like more on the technical side, more on the implementation side, post sale side. Definitely a different selling motion. Um, Currently entry level ISR for VMware, trying to move to account manager. So yes, so if you want to make the move from ISR, inside sales rep, to an account executive, make sure, again, I mentioned this before, make sure you know exactly how your performance is being measured. Make sure you're performing at the top of the leaderboard if you're being compared to your peers. And then also indicate to your manager that that's the specific move that you want to do. Past the entry level role, it's extremely important to take control of your career. You basically have to like write your promotion documents yourself, and then your manager is kind of there as a formality. I think one of the biggest mistakes I see is that sometimes people will kind of like sit in the back seat of their career after they get started, and they're just kind of like waiting for a promotion when really you need to kind of almost like not necessarily fight for the promotion, but you need to make it clear that that's what you want because not everyone wants to get promoted, surprisingly. and then, hold your manager accountable to that. How long would you be an individual contributor before going to management? It depends what level of management you want to go into. Like, for example, if you know you want to be an enterprise sales manager, I would wait until you move up to the enterprise level as an individual contributor before going into management. So that timing will vary. Juniper Networks, not too familiar with them, but I've heard good things. What's the salary ceiling in this job for top 1% performers? For the top 1% performers, they're having like $1 million years, especially at startups that have uncapped commissions. Where can you find resume templates for tech sales? I think I have some I think I have one in my tech sales Discord. Check that out. What's my LinkedIn again? Love pre-hired. It's Thomas Niaviara, but I think if you search TechSalesTom, I added it to my LinkedIn. There's no hiding it anymore. You should be able to see it. How do you get into tech sales without cold calling? Don't be afraid of cold calling. Prospecting. It's called prospecting. This is going to be. It's a key part. Kind of even as you move up, you're going to be trying to break into new business units, new segments within your accounts. And it's a little uncomfortable at first, and you're not really actually on the phone really that often. It's more so like you're doing like LinkedIn messages and emails, and you're kind of like building out like an internal map of the company that you're covering. What skills would a communication grad that would be lucrative for tech sales? I would think writing is actually very important within tech sales. So presentations as well. Oops. Let's see. Before you transition to a bigger company, how much experience is needed? It's going to vary quite a bit. It depends. So there's a ton of hiring demand right now. So I wouldn't be surprised. When I've switched jobs, I've had recruiters reach out to me like literally the month I've already changed the job. So they don't really care too much about how long you stay in your old role. Would you recommend being a doctor or an AE in tech? Great question. I studied biomedical engineering, did the MCAT, did all my prereqs. And as I was applying for medical school, I didn't really have like the passion to do all the years of schooling afterwards. So it really kind of depends. As a doctor, you're going to spend a lot of time within school, and then kind of like when you get out, you're kind of already like at the peak of your career. There isn't like too much growth there unless like you start your own practice or something. And there's also a very big difference in like the specialties that you go into. And sometimes you don't have a choice because it's all based on like what you match into. Um, and then, within tech, I would say you've got a much better like work-life balance. You're not going to be like working like evenings and weekends for the most part. A ton of career growth, and you can kind of like change up your career too. Most people in tech don't stay within the same role for more than like a few years. Like typically they're either changing companies or they're going into different parts of the business. So it kind of keeps you pretty engaged there. I think there's a good amount more burnout within the medical field right now. There's a lot of scrutiny within that space too. Any multi-cloud companies on your radar? HashiCorp is pretty solid. They've got a whole platform in terms of enabling multi-cloud. How to improve professional writing. There's a bunch of courses out there. You can look on like LinkedIn Learning for professional writing courses. Very important, especially on Amazon. Amazon's really important too, and they have a bunch of like internal training for writing. Is November a good time to apply? Yes, pretty much any time is a good time to apply, but right now they're doing a ton of hiring for next year. You work in the medical field and you're looking to transition to tech sales. Yeah, I know actually quite a few people. A friend of a friend, he was like a medical technician, I think for like 6 years. And he was starting to get burned out, and he actually signed up for the pre-hired program, and he's just finishing that up right now, and he's had a good experience. Is 160K OTE for SMB account manager good, bad, or average? I would say it's pretty average. Um, so I'd assume you're probably on a 50-50 split. So for like SMB account managers, I've seen anywhere from like 70 to like 100, but probably it's more so like 70 to like 85 or 70 to 90 is what like a typical base would be. So I'd say you're pretty much in line. Are meetings virtual? Yes, pretty much everything's virtual right now. I haven't done any customer meetings for like the past year and a half in person, but I am going to our conference that we're finally doing in person in Vegas in a couple weeks. You have a summer internship. commitment. Can you do tech sales from now until then in college right now? Not for the most part. These aren't really like part-time positions just because the companies end up investing a lot of time and energy into training you. So they're pretty much all full-time positions for the most part. Do you think it's better to take an SDR role at a top 5 company or to take the account manager at mid-tier? I would say the bigger company, especially if you know that you want to be an account manager or account executive at a top 5 tech company, it's a lot easier to get in as an SDR and then get promoted up that way versus if you take an account management role at a mid-tier company and you want to eventually become an account manager at a top 5 tech company. It's going to be a lot more competitive to go for those positions for sure. And it might not be possible, just depending on the timing. Do I upload my lives on YouTube? Yeah, I think I've done 2. There's another one I got to upload. I'll be uploading this one on YouTube as well. What age did I start tech sales? I started, so I graduated, 2013. So it was 2023, and then started in tech support when I was like 23, and then transitioned into tech sales like a year later. How many years of experience for these base salaries? It's going to range based on your experience. I got to these numbers within 5 years, but it could be for some people potentially 10 years or so. These are the enterprise levels. You've got your first call with a recruiter from Amazon. Any tips? Yeah. Make sure you can speak to everything on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile. Make sure you have good answers for why you're interested in working for Amazon specifically. And then make sure you have questions about the role itself. And then the other thing is start brushing up and learning about the Amazon leadership principles because the interview is going to be all about those. 75K plus is solid. Yep, it is. Let's see. Is tech sales as big in Canada, if you know any info? Yeah, so pretty much all of the big tech companies, they do have positions based in Canada. I don't think there's many like companies that are based out of Canada, but it is a market for most companies. Good companies to get into as an SDR. I recommend medium to larger companies that have like solid sales training programs. That's pretty much what you want to be looking for as an SDR. In most cases, you want to avoid very small startups because oftentimes you just won't get like the sales training and enablement that you need to get early on in your career. Your first few years within tech sales should be building foundational skills, so that way you know exactly what you need to do. Oops, you'll be there at reInvent. Awesome. Send me a message and we can meet up. You lead the AWS Alliance for PwC. Small, less than 100 employees. That'd be pretty small. And then also not just the number of employees, but like the size of the sales organization. So I would say small would be like less than 10 people within the sales organization. Oh, let me go ahead and put the background on again. Oops. Sorry guys, I lost the background. TikTok is doing its thing. Sometimes like I'm not sure if it's like I get so many questions or something that it just like starts deleting my background or not. But let's see. I'll get back up here. Oh, here we go. I'm supposed to get streaming access for like my laptop, which would be great, so that way I could stream TikTok from there. If anyone is seeing this, you're hiring more BDRs at medical software company or remote. Yes, reach out to Dal Tuff for sure. Dal, you should also post within the Discord. Can attest to that time in industry took you 5 years in cybersecurity sales for 125K base. Yeah, 125K base is solid. Kind of where it typically tops out is like 150K base. It doesn't really get too much higher than that. Is 80K OTE good for entry level? Yeah, definitely very good. I've seen the entry level ones I've seen as low as like 60K. I haven't seen too many 50K ones anymore, but the highest I've seen is like 95,000. Do you have fulfillment doing your job? I do, yeah. I find it enjoyable. You can make like actually like a very big impact. What did I make my first 3 years in sales? So I did my salary breakdown. So when I was like in like tech support, I made 62,000. Then I moved into like a sales role within that company. I think I got up to like 72,000 by the time that I left. The first startup that I went to, I think it was 115,000. Then I went to Google, which was 180 or 190,000. The next startup was like 240, and then at Amazon it's 300 for the OTE. What's some good places in Austin, Texas? There's a ton. There's a ton of great companies. Look at builtinaustin.com. Uh, that's like they're a blog, and they have specific pages for different tech hubs, and they have Austin listed as one. Is what you're selling actually marketable? Yeah, I sell Amazon Web Services, so they're a leader within cloud infrastructure, so about as marketable as you can get. How's business? Business is great for me. I'm on track to do like 140% of quota. Thoughts on Uber for Business and DocuSign? Um, Both interesting. I'll probably be a little bit more bullish on DocuSign. How small is too small when looking at startups to join? I would say, unless you're super experienced, don't join a startup that's like less than 100 people. That's just my opinion. Most promising SaaS startups in your experience. So, pretty bullish on like Databricks. What does OTE mean? OTE is how much you would earn. It's your on target earnings. This is how much you would earn if you hit 100% of your quota. It's a combination of your base salary plus your commission. Why did I decide to leave Google? So I decided to leave because I was presented with an opportunity that was like a higher level opportunities. It was about like 100K more in pay, and then it was also going to lead into like a very strong leadership position. I ended up getting burned though because about 10 months into it, uh, there was that very huge COVID crash. The company was dealing with like funds that were being embezzled. They had to like kick out like whatever um, some of the leadership team, and they ended up like laying off like half the company, including myself. But it worked out. I got like 4 months of like severance. Had plenty of time to find the next position. Why do you think people get burned out in sales? I think they get burned out when they don't have kind of clear goals in their mind in terms of where they want to go within their career. Another time that they get burned out too is if they don't work backwards from what their overall goal is in terms of attainment, like from a quota perspective, and they don't like break up their work on a daily basis. So if you're the type of person who kind of like puts off things for like the end of the week or the end of the quarter, that's definitely going to burn you out. How to get over social anxiety when cold calling. Just a lot of practice. So you can record yourself like speaking in a mirror. You can do role playing. One thing that I really recommend is actually Toastmasters. So Toastmasters is a public speaking organization, and they have chapters in almost every major city. So you can just search like Toastmasters in your city, and it's great for it gives you opportunity to do like public speaking. I did that. It actually helped me kind of get over a lot of public speaking anxiety. Is my vertical healthcare? My vertical is automotive. What do I think about Anaplan? Anaplan, so they provide software for compensation planning, compensation management for sales team. I think they're pretty well regarded. You got an interview for Databricks. Yeah, that's awesome. How did I start off? I started off on as a biomedical engineer. Originally was planning on medical school. Decided to not do all that schooling, and then I was working in tech support within like a hardware company. Did an internal transfer to an SDR, moved up to ISR, and then I made the move to a software company because I saw how much more software companies were paying compared to hardware companies. Any tips on moving from a consultant role to an account executive role? Yeah, try to get involved with like the sales process as much as you can. So outside of like what your actual role and scope is, do any shadowing that you can. Identify like a mentor within the company that can help like sponsor your internal transfer. And then also make sure you spend time with who the sales manager would be and make your intentions clear. Any recommended networking groups, events in New York City? I don't know about New York City specifically, but if you send me a DM on Instagram, I can reach out to my contacts there. Love this. Connected with you on LinkedIn. Hope to connect in Vegas. Yes, definitely. Make sure you send me a message so I don't forget. I'm definitely going. What contact data do I use? I use mostly LinkedIn Sales Navigator actually, and then Discover.org. Um, what are some good questions to ask a VP of Sales for a final interview? One of my favorite questions to ask is, what are some of the traits of your top performers? What are some of like the gaps that you wish you want to see addressed within your sales team? And then what are some of like your specific challenges yourself? And then of course, it's always good to ask questions about the territory that you're going into. Is it a new territory? Is it a backfill territory? What are some of the challenges that have existed within this territory? What does the pipeline look like right now for opportunities? Do you think Qualtrics is overrated? I actually sold Qualtrics was one of my accounts when I was at Google. I was pretty surprised at how well they did within their IPO, but the product that they have is actually super solid. I think internal surveys is actually pretty underrated in terms of like there's a lot of demand for people for companies to make sure that they understand like the sentiment of their employees. Do I ever miss the free food? Yeah, the free food at Google was great. Oh man, it was like the breakfast, the snacks, the lunch. So definitely missed that. I've ever come across finance bros or investment salespeople transition to tech sales. Yeah, I've seen a few, especially for people that have been getting like burned out within like IB, for example, and don't want to necessarily go through that whole path. Do you still have to do cold emails? Not too much, not at my level. What do you think about conversational AI space? I'm bullish on that space. Recommended any companies within Los Angeles, LA. So look at Built in LA. I think it's Built in LA. If you just Google that, they've got a bunch of great resources there for like what are like the hot top startups that are headquartered within LA. Thoughts on resupply? I'll have to look into them. I got Bamboo HR. Bamboo HR is on RepView. Do you need a college degree to get in tech sales? Nope, not required. How do you show on an interview that you're willing to learn without saying so? You can show that by actually learning stuff before the interview and then making it clear what you actually did to learn and what you did learn. Um, so if you're interviewing at like a cybersecurity company, make sure you kind of know like high level concepts that you can actually talk to. What Google location was I at? Austin, Texas. How much equity is normal for a startup? Less than a single digit percent is going to be pretty typical for a sales rep. Is RepView Canadian data? They do have Canadian data within RepView. They break down this data by like location as well. Wildly informative. Thank you for doing this. Yeah, I appreciate it. I really do enjoy kind of giving back and bringing transparency within this industry. Actually, I had like a funny comment. Someone was kind of like trolling me and he was saying like, why are you? I think he specifically said like, this is like a fairly under the radar career. I hate that you're bringing like this much like transparency into it and creating competition. I don't think I'm creating competition. There's plenty of opportunities out there. It's like a scarcity mindset, I would say, when people are trying to kind of like hide information for themselves. What kind of startup would you start? I actually really enjoy like the cybersecurity risk analytics space. There's a ton of opportunities within there. Companies are using like so many different cybersecurity tools. There's a ton of opportunity to deduplicate data and actually identify like where the risk actually lies. AWS training for tech sales. Yeah, look at the cloud practitioner certification. That one's a good one. Can you get an AE role without B2B experience in tech sales? It'd be pretty hard unless you have very specific industry knowledge or have experience selling to specific customers that overlap with the ones that you would cover within the AE role. For someone currently in college, would you recommend they do to prepare, find an internship? Yes, absolutely. If you're in college and if you're not doing summer internships every summer, you're doing a huge disservice to yourself. Describe the best SDR, BDR you've ever had. Great question. It was actually at like the first startup that I was at, or actually no, the first startup that I was at. He just did a lot of great like follow up in terms of once he created the lead, he was really interested in kind of observing how that opportunity and lead would actually progress through the rest of the sales cycle. And then, so just like a very hands-on, asked a lot of like great questions. How many hours a week do I work? Probably like 30 to 40. Have you heard of SV Academy? Yes, they're one of the sales boot camps. How do you get started in tech if you don't have any background at all? So there's kind of like two ways. One, you build like a sales focused resume, build out, even if you don't have sales experience, build out your LinkedIn profile. Look at my pin post for what specific positions to look for. You're looking for sales development representative positions, and you're going to see most of them posted on LinkedIn. Do that for a couple of weeks. If you don't get any traction, or if you need like a bit more guidance and coaching, that's when like a program like Pre-Hired or Pre-Sales Academy, both of those are in my bio. Those can help you out there. With all the boomers retiring, there's plenty of sales jobs out there. Yeah, there's plenty of room for everyone, I would say. Best way to transition from 10 plus years of B2B experience in other industries into tech. Best way to transition is leverage what you know. So if you've sold into, for example, automotive customers, try to target like software companies that create solutions for those same types of customers. Whenever you do like a career pivot, you don't want to do a complete pivot where you're not reusing anything that you've learned before. The best types of pivots are ones where you're able to kind of leverage your prior experience into the new role, and that way you're kind of up leveling yourself instead of like doing like a step backwards. What kind of people do you think should not go into sales? That would be helpful. I would say if you're not organized, if you're not money driven, if you're not competitive, you're probably not going to do too well within sales, to be honest. Um, Everyone kind of knows it's kind of like a running joke that salespeople are like coin operated. So, you should have like some competitive nature. You should, honestly, you probably should have like interest in like expensive hobbies or like traveling or something. Like to me, that was kind of like a motivation to kind of excel within my career and kind of go for promotions because I had like these high level aspirations in terms of what I wanted out of my personal life. Best way to prepare for tech sales interviews: do your research on the company, the leadership team, their position within the market compared to competitors. Have a good answer for why you're interested in tech sales, why you're interested in that company, and you'll do great. If work hours are about the same, what are the top earners doing to become top earners? So, yes, so within tech sales specifically, it's not about how many hours you put in, but it's about how you actually use those hours. So, you have to be very strategic with your time. You need to like think at a high level. You need to know what needs to be done. Because it's very easy to you could spend like 60, 80 hours and not get anywhere. And you can get outperformed by someone who's, let's say doing 20 hours of work a week, but they know specifically how to like leverage their time and focus on the right opportunities versus spinning their wheels with opportunities that aren't going to go anywhere. Great questions, guys. So I'm actually going to be wrapping up here. So this is like kind of like the weekly lives that I've been doing. Lots of great questions. If you have any more questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram. They got rid of the feature on TikTok to DM, unfortunately. You can look at the Tech Sales Discord that I have, looking to become more active on there, but there's a ton of answers that are replied to. That was kind of the idea with the Discord, was to kind of create like a repository of questions and answers. So feel free to look there. And then if you have like a non-traditional background, you want like a really guided experience with like one-on-one coaching, mentoring, and training, that's when like those like sales boot camps could be a good fit. It's not a good fit for everyone, but it's like an option. So you can look at Pre-Hired, Pre-Sales Academy. Those are in my bio. But thanks everyone. Hope you have a great night, and then I'll be reposting this on YouTube if you want to rewatch it. And see you guys next week.